She's good to go. She's rocking and rolling.
Nice.
And we are back for Ted Bundy Part 2. Don't know if you missed us at all, whether you remember what we were talking about, because there was a lot to talk about.
There was a lot.
I mean, we're kind of going to go over his MO now anyway, and all we know is that Ted Bundy was a piece of shit. Sorry,
no, it's so true though.
How
and
are
people
you?
People idolize him, and I'll never understand the idolizing serial killers.
Yeah,
I love the psychology behind it. I love the stories of it. I clearly love true crime. But these
trying
people
to figure out why their brain worked the way it did.
But these people that worship them and, I love Ted Bundy. I'm going to write to him when he's in jail and tell him I love him. What the fuck?
Yeah, like freaking starting cults and shit, like Charles Manson or something.
Yeah, people lose their minds writing to them. Like you're seeing it everywhere at the moment with this Luigi Mangione. People losing their minds over him.
Yeah.
Because he's got a beautiful smile.
Yeah, there's actually a lot behind his story.
Yeah.
Why he did it. Yeah. Him, I can understand people writing and being nice to. Because he was, I can't remember if it was his mum or he himself was sick. I think it was his mum. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
He's so passionate.
But apparently he's written a memoir thing.
Oh, really?
So I hope that gets published because I'll buy that. Idolize him. Yeah, that's cool. He's like a vigilante.
I was going to say, he's like not Robin Hood because he wasn't doing it for money per se.
Batman.
It was, someone was like wronged by not a system but a company.
Yeah, he didn't go and murder people and leave them in the forest and go
because they looked like his ex-girlfriend
to visit their body until it was mush.
Like
that is not who you idolize, guys.
That's disgusting. I just don't understand because that weeks. He went back weeks. Right, so Bundy's MO. He was a bit fucked up. I mean, to begin with, he started off a lot of the helpless, whether he had his arm in a cast, a sling, or he had crutches. He always pretended to need help. He would be the helpless one. He'd drop his books. He'd need something, which worked very well in his favor with his looks. Or he would convince people he was some sort of authority figure, whether it was security or even police officer kind of thing. Don't quote me on that, actually. I don't know about the police officer. Here's me just dribbling shit. He'd lure his victims to a more secluded area. So whether he was asking for help to take things back to his car, and that car was this cute little V-dub, the little yellow one, which was parked some distance away in a secluded area, and he would bludgeon them unconscious, restrain them, and then drive them out to a more remote area where he'd sexually assault them and kill them. Now, a lot of those I did mention, I think in the previous episode, he did decapitate a lot of his victims. I think there was about 12 that he had just floating around his... I shouldn't say floating. That's probably not a good... that he had resting not respectfully at all because he decapitated them around his apartment, just laying around. That's fucking weird. I don't know. You're laughing at that floating around. So he pulled the passenger seat out of the V-dub so that he could, push, open the door and push them in a lot easier and slide their legs in and stuff into the... Because I guess he could push them into the back seat easier. Which is, that's big red flag. If you're pulled over with that, that's a little fucking weird.
Yeah. That's like dedicating your life to the crime. Like you're altering things to make your crime easier.
Yeah. You're putting so much forethought into this crime.
It's not it takes away it being a crime of opportunity. That's absolutely planned, and he's hunting for these women. I've literally
written down here that Bundy was unusually organised and calculating criminal who used his extensive knowledge of law enforcement methodologies to elude identification and capture for years. He used all these things that he'd learned in his psychology degrees, whatever degree he got out of that, and out of all his law studies to evade police. I don't think there was ever any evidence, and there was literally not a single fingerprint of his ever at a crime scene. Wow. He was so meticulous with his crimes. He was just so, not smart. I don't want to call him smart, but he was smart.
Well, even one of the documentaries I watched, one of the cops who was working the cases in one of the states, he said that Bundy was too smart for us.
Yeah.
He was like, he was always one step ahead. He outsmarted us on every point. And if it wasn't for when he accidentally got arrested, I don't believe that they ever would have found him.
And it was when he got to a point where the monster inside him, or whatever you'd call it, was so violent and in a rage when he went and did these last crimes.
Yeah.
And went on that spree. That he got sloppy at that point because he was going room to room, house to house.
Yeah.
Like he was just, this isn't enough. I just need to keep going.
He just needed to feed.
And then imagine having to face that again after.
Yeah.
That's scary. Whew, I'm starting to run out of breath again. His crime scenes were distributed over large geographic areas. His victim count had risen to at least 20 before it actually became clear that it was one person. Numerous investigators in widely different jurisdictions took so long to realize that they were hunting the same person.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. Like, I know he did move around a bit, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
That you haven't pinpointed him and he's managed to go from place to place. His assault methods of choice were blunt trauma and strangulation, two relatively silent techniques. So he'd never used guns. He wasn't using, I guess, weapons per se, other than his own physical strength. Really.
Yeah. It's even more sadistic. He wants to be up close. He wants that
feel
personal.
That,
yeah.
Which is really scary. And again, props to, I need to find her name. I've got it probably later here. The one that stood up to him face to face and was like, yep, there he is. There's that monster. She managed to get that back out of him again.
Yeah.
To prove a point and be like, there you go. There you are. Hello.
Yeah.
But yeah, also those techniques, he could, like the blunt force trauma, he'd use random household items that he'd find in those people's houses. So he wasn't carrying weapons around. He wasn't bringing anything in. And then obviously managed to keep his fingerprints off everything, so he just grabbed whatever. He deliberately avoided firearms due to the noise they made and the ballistic evidence they left behind, the gun residue, whatever that could pinpoint you back to that scene. He was unusually skilled at minimizing physical evidence. Fingerprints were never found at a crime scene, nor any other evidence of his guilt, a fact that he actually repeated often during the years in which he attempted to maintain his innocence. So when he was trying to fight his case, he was like, oh, but there was never there's no evidence that I did it, other than, face-to-face people that seen him there, caught red-handed. Other significant obstacles for law enforcement were Bundy's generic, essentially anonymous physical features. Like I said, his picture, if you squint, or like make it blurry, he looks like one of those generic photos that's posted of a man, the hand-drawn, not caricature, what do they call it?
Like
the profiler pictures. Yeah. He's got good features, but at the same time, he is the most...
He's just plain. He's got nothing that makes him stand out.
There are so many dark-haired...
It's not like
dark-haired, blue-eyed,
like, oh, he's got a scar over his face, or
or facial
tattoo on his throat. Like, there's
hair. Yeah, like he was just so basic. He a basic boy, but he used that to his advantage. So he'd literally, whether it was he wore a turtleneck, I think, to hide. He did have like a birthmark or a mole or something on his neck.
Yeah,
he used turtleneck just to cover that. So he had no distinguishing features to be pinpointed. He used that. He was regarded as handsome and charismatic, traits that he exploited to win the confidence of his victims and people around him in his daily life. He was a charming man.
Yeah.
And he used that, like I said, to his advantage.
Yeah.
He sucked people in with his kindness and his good looks. So with a lot of the kills, he would take them to secondary locations. In the case of his Utah victims, the secondary site would be his apartment building, the one with all the heads, I think. Toward the end of his spree in Florida, at one point he was literally a fugitive, and during that time he was still attacking people, but he'd not, have the whole time to do the ruse of faking of needing help. He'd just break into people's houses and attack them while they were sleeping.
He just got messy.
Yeah. But weirdly still needed that fix of... I guess the fix, yeah. He often said that he didn't do it to torture people. His biographer, Anne Rule, the one that he worked with in that suicide prevention hotline, she regarded him as a sadistic sociopath who took pleasure in human suffering. But he was saying that he didn't do it specifically to torture people. And he even said that he went out of his way to, not to prevent pain, but he was doing things a certain way that would
make it quick,
make it easier, I guess. Yeah. I don't know if that's the way to put it. That's no other way to put it. So the secondary sites, Bundy would remove the victim's clothing and later burn them, or in at least one case, he deposited the clothes just in the Goodwill bin, which was random. Like, why go from,
Yeah.
destroying the clothes to just throwing them in a place where people are going to look at them and be like, hey,
Wow.
So he actually explained that the clothing removal and burning was a whole ritualistic thing, a whole process for him to do it. And it was also a practical thing as well. So there
Yeah.
wouldn't be things that could catch DNA, and
Yeah.
like it was easier for him to minimize the chance of leaving trace of evidence at the crime scene that could potentially implicate him.
Yeah.
Which is funny because a manufacturing error in fibers from his own clothing, ironically, provided a crucial incriminating link to one of the cases,
Oh,
one of
wow.
the killings of. I wrote down Leach, but I obviously haven't given all the people's names yet and stuff. So he often actually revisited his secondary crime scenes to engage in those acts of necrophilia, which is gross. I think there was a lot in the forest. So imagine
Yeah.
how quickly
Yeah.
and how much nature would affect,
That's it. Animals, the environment,
whether it was
bugs.
the heat, what weather it
Yeah.
was it summer? Yuck. But also yuck. What? I should just It honestly makes me speechless. He was visiting his secondary sites a lot to
Wow.
engage in acts of necrophilia, and he'd dress them up. So apparently some of the victims were actually found wearing clothes that they'd not had before.
Yeah.
So when they were identified, the people that identified them were like, that's none of their shit,
Yeah.
what they're wearing. There was also nail polish that family members were like, yeah, they didn't have that on. So
Wow.
he's gone and dressed them up like they're his dolls. Bundy took Polaroid photos of many of his victims, and he was actually quoted saying, when you work hard to do something right, you don't want to forget it.
Wow.
Yep. I wrote down who he told, but I don't think I've referenced Hagmeyer. I think it was just an investigator or something.
Yeah.
All of Bundy's known victims were white females, most of middle class backgrounds. Almost all were between the ages of 15 and 25, and most were college. Anne Rule, the one that wrote the biography, she
Yeah.
noted that most of the identified victims had long straight hair parted in the middle, like Diane Edwards, the woman who rejected him and to whom he later became engaged and then rejected in return. Oh, yeah, so they got engaged and were full talking about marriage, and then he just disappeared. I still find that funny. In like a, really? Like you went to that effort?
Yeah.
Rule speculated that Bundy's animosity towards his first girlfriend triggered his rampages and caused him to target victims who resembled her. So a lot of like rejection, a lot of they look like her. I don't think he wanted to be with her. It was just all, you hurt me, I hurt you.
And it was probably all the things he wanted to do to her, but he couldn't because he was too close to it and he would have been a suspect.
Yeah, so that's why Anne Rule, she thinks because they had that familiarity, because they, I guess, were friends, because they were friends, he wouldn't, she was like, I was the safest because he didn't want that familiarity with who he killed.
Yeah, they had to be strangers.
But he dismissed that hypothesis. He went on to say that they just fit a general criteria of being young and attractive. It had nothing to do with anyone looking like Diane. But of course you're going to say that.
And it could have been subconscious too.
Yeah.
That he just saw these women and
he
they made him angry.
Pretty and he's pretty because they look,
Yeah. If they're pretty, they're too good for him. So he'll show them.
He's just psychotic. After Bundy's execution, Rule was surprised, and she was actually troubled to hear from numerous sensitive, intelligent, kind young women that actually wrote or called to say they were deeply depressed because Bundy was dead. So there was still women after his death that were really attached to him in a way.
Wow.
Many had corresponded with him, each believing that she was, his only one and that she was his, true love or whatever. And suffered nervous breakdowns when he died. So she wrote, like, even in death, Ted damaged women, which I thought was I thought that quote was a hard pill to swallow, I guess. Not a hard pill to swallow. I don't know how to. It was like, it's crazy to see that he has managed to affect people so much that even after his death, people are still crying about him or dedicating things to him or, like you said, worshipping him. And it's like, did you read what he did to women? Did you read into his story, or you just because you think he's good looking for He's not even good looking though. I don't get it. Not my type.
No, same.
So she wrote, to get well, they must realize that they were conned by the master con man. They're grieving for a shadow man that never existed.
Yeah.
So all these things that he was writing back and forth with them, being this charming person, that wasn't who he was.
Yeah, not at all.
So we're down to Bundy's murder spree. That's what I've got this titled.
Yeah.
This next little section. So the night before his execution, he actually confessed to 30 homicides. He sat down with one of the FBI agents and they actually did the whole victim tally, going state by state. There is a long list of people. So he's confessed to 30, but the true total remains unknown. He never confessed to the true total and even made jokes being like, add a 0 and that's your total, or double that and that's your total. It was a interviewer that said for every one that he's confessed to, there'd be one that he hasn't confessed to, which is, it's a bit sad because then there's no closure for all these unsolved cases out there that were potentially Bundy's victims. And it's kind of, I'd rather he would have told his whole true list just to, you know.
It's a pity there's not some like truth serum that they can give people and be like, here you go.
Hey, Snape, whip up your little elixir and we can get down to the bottom of this. It's, sad because you can't, like I said, for those ones that we haven't found that he didn't confirm, those bodies are still somewhere. Those remains are somewhere. And you kind of want them to have had to be put at peace, I guess.
Yeah.
So I just wrote a whole bunch of people being like, they thought it was this much and this person thought it was this much. It was well over like 50s, 70s. It was way up there. It was a huge number. And then another person even stated that Ted personally told them in an interview that he'd killed over 100 people.
Wow.
And just, lost, I guess, track of his tally, whether he had one. This is... I've got it kind of broken down into the year and then the state.
Yeah.
I've just kind of taken this from online because there is a lot of info. It was hard to put this down into a form that's easy to comprehend. It is a long list. Not meaning it's overwhelming. I just mean there's just so much info. It was so hard to just... Even now I'm still scrolling. So this is in 1974... to what was supposedly his first one in Washington, where he was actually living, had the apartment. So January 4th was Karen Sparks, who was 18. She was bludgeoned and sexually assaulted in her bed as she slept in the University District of Seattle. She survived, but the extent of her injuries resulted in permanent brain damage. So she was affected for the rest of her life. She was 18. Then February 1st, a month later, was Linda Ann Healy. She was 21. She was bludgeoned while asleep and abducted from her basement bedroom in Seattle and was then decapitated and dismembered post-mortem. What? I don't know what that means. I wrote, it says mandible recovered at Taylor Mountain site in 1975.
So her jaw, the bottom part of her jaw was found.
Is that what a mandible is?
Yep.
Wow. She was dismembered and then he must have scattered it across several sites. And so her mandible, which I've only just come to find out is the bottom part of your jaw, was recovered at Taylor Mountain site in 1975. Fucked up. What the hell? I'm literally 2 in and I'm already like, what the fuck? He was just so violent about everything. There was nothing.
Yeah.
It was just like he hated this person. March 12th, again, a month later, Donna Gail Manson. She was 19. She was abducted while walking to a concert at Evergreen State College. Her body left, according to Bundy, at Taylor Mountain site as well, but was never found. So that's one that's never been really put to rest. Her remains have never been laid to rest, really. However, there's speculation that the partial remains of an unidentified female discovered near Eatonville, Washington on August 29th, 1978 could have actually belonged to Manson. The remains and clothing were reportedly destroyed on May 10th, 1985 before a positive forensic identification could be made. Why would you destroy it?
Wow.
I don't understand why they destroy evidence.
Yeah.
especially stuff that
is unsolved.
and stuff that would hold DNA. You're waiting. If it's because you don't have the technology, just fucking leave it.
Yeah.
This is making my mouth dry. I'm like frustrated and.
But at the very least, like if they've got to get rid of that body for room or whatever, you can keep a bone. You can keep something that you can test later.
Yeah. Remains, I understand. Obviously, decomposition, that sort of thing. You
Yeah.
can't keep that sort of thing too long of a period to still be able to get good DNA or good, oh my God, my voice just broke, good evidence. But clothing, that's folded up, fucking put it in an airtight vacuum seal bag. It ain't hurting no one. Right. So then again, another month later, April 17th, Suzanne Elaine Rancourt, she was 18, disappeared after attending an evening advisors meeting at Central Washington State College. Her skull and, again, the mandible, lower jaw, recovered at Taylor Mountain site in 1975. Taylor Mountain site was quite a big
it's like a dumping ground for him.
Big part of Bundy's. I think that's where he went a lot of the time to perform the necrophilia.
Yeah.
Both had been severely fractured, her skull and the lower jaw. Shit. Again, month later, May 6th, Roberta Kathleen Parks, 22, vanished from Oregon State University. Again, college student. Just would have been luring them into the car, doing the whole, please help me, shoving them in his shitty little V-dub, rusted out yellow car. Why am I getting angry? I think just reading these, it just makes me mad. I think Morbid even joked and they were like, just don't help people. Just don't be kind. Fuck. I think that's our coping mechanism, is laughing through shit like this and making jokes. Right. May 6, I'm done. Then, these are starting to get closer. Now we're 1 month later again. June 1st, Brenda Carol Ball. She was 22. She disappeared after leaving the Flame Tavern in Burien, I think that's how you say it, and was last seen in the parking lot talking to a man with his arm in a sling. So, did the whole injured foe, please help me, you piece of shit, Bundy. Her skull and, again, lower jaw recovered at Taylor Mountain site in 1975. Her skull had been fractured, so he'd knocked her unconscious. Now, this is June again. So this is only 10 days later. June 11th was Georgian Hawkins, who was 18. She was abducted from an alley behind a sorority house. Skeletal remains that were identified by Bundy were those of Hawkins and were recovered at Ithaca site.
So he obviously told them where to find her.
Yeah, so there was some... This is where it was hard to tell whether he was lying or not, because some he would tell them and they would actually find things. Then they would dig a whole huge area and nothing would be found. So he was kind of just playing games, really. Manipulating people into, I don't know, it's just a fuckwit. So her remains are actually still listed as missing. She's still a missing person. So I don't think they had enough DNA in those remains to be able to identify it. Even though he said they're hers, they've left it labelled as missing. So then there's July 14th, again, another month later. There's Janice Ann Ott. She was 23, abducted from Lake Sammamish. Well, I'm struggling with that one. There's a lot of M's in it. Abducted from Lake Sammamish, and I'm sorry if I've butchered that, state park in broad daylight. And she was last seen leaving the park with Bundy, who had asked her for assistance with putting his sailboat on his car. This was one where it was a lake beach type setting. There was people everywhere. And I think this was one of the ones I heard where he'd actually asked another person beforehand and she was almost gone, went to his car and then was like, where's your speedboat or whatever boat? And he was like, oh, that's back at, I think he said, at this house. And then she was like, no, I'm not. And actually survived. And he'd literally asked multiple people and tried this whole sailboat. I need your help with the sailboat. And some people were like, that's fucking weird. Like, why are you asking me? I'm a, 20-year-old female. What am I going to help you with? My arms are like noodles. But so then Janice Ann Ott was one that actually went and helped. And he actually hit her as he got to the car. He didn't kind of let her get to the point to be like, oh, where's your sailboat? But yeah, so her skeletal remains were recovered at the Ithaca site as well, 1974. So now he's kind of ventured to a second secondary site.
Yeah.
So now July 14th as well, she was abducted 4 hours after Janice was. This was Denise Marie Naslin. She was 19. She was abducted from that same lake as Janice was, and was last seen walking towards the restrooms. I think he's kind of attacked her when she's been there.
Yeah.
So he's obviously not had enough. There was a lot of these girls fought very hard. So I think there's some things that didn't go his way. And so he's had to kind of continue straight away and go to the next attack to get whatever it was out of his system.
Yeah.
So her skeletal remains recovered at the Ithaca site as well in 1974. So I think a lot of the Ithaca sites, he's had to be, this is where it is.
Yeah.
So now we are moving to Utah, which this is still, 1974. This is now October. So he's had a couple month break, I guess you would call it. This is October 1st. There was Nancy Wilcox. She was only 16. And she was last seen leaving her home at 9:00 p.m. Get to bed. Leaving her home 9 p.m. in Holiday, Utah, after getting into an argument with her father. Oh, sorry. So she got into a fight with her dad and, I guess, stormed out. Her body was buried, according to Bundy, near Capitol Reef National Park, 200 miles, which in Australian terms is about 320 kilometres, south of Salt Lake City, but her body was never found. So her remains are still missing.
Yeah.
And now October 18th, so same month still, Melissa Ann Smith, 17. She vanished from Midvale, Utah after leaving a pizza parlor to walk home. Her body was found 9 days later on a hillside. It was just literally thrown.
Wow.
Like he wasn't trying to cover it. It wasn't too very well hidden. In Summit Park, Utah, her head had been severely beaten with a crowbar and her body had been battered before death. So he'd beaten her before he'd killed her, which is really scary. Like it's like he gets into this, I guess, a rage. It makes me, I always refer everything to movies, but it makes me think of, what's the one that's, I don't know if you've watched, I think Split?
Yeah, yeah.
He's got this split personality where he literally turns into this violent monster that rips people apart with his bare hands.
Yep.
I'm sorry for referring everything to movies. So then we are still in the same month. This is now Halloween. October. Laura Ann Aim, she was 17. She disappeared from, I don't know if it's Lehi or Lehigh. I've probably butchered that as well. I'm so sorry, Utah. On her way home from a Halloween party, and her body was discovered by hikers in American Fork Canyon. So I'm not quite sure how far that is from any of these secondary sites like Ithaca. Her face was beaten beyond recognition, and she'd been strangled and sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
They didn't really specify about the other ones a lot, whether they were as well. So now this is not more than a couple weeks later. Sorry, barely a week later, November 8th, Carol DeRonch, sorry if I'm butchering everything. She was 18. She was picked up from a shopping mall in Murray, Utah, and she was lured by Bundy pretending to be a police officer investigating vehicle break-ins in the parking lot. She actually escaped by jumping out of Bundy's vehicle after he inadvertently fastened a pair of handcuffs on the same wrist.
Oh.
So he'd put I think she's one of the survivors, and she's just fucking legged it. Then November 8th, I think because Carol managed to get away, he's tried again. So there was Deborah Jean Kent, 17. She vanished after leaving school play in Bountiful, Utah. Well, that's the Bountiful. That's a cool name. So her body was left, according to Bundy, near Fairview, which was 100 miles, 160 kilometers south of Bountiful. One patella. What's a patella?
I think your kneecap.
Patella is, oh, you are spot on. The kneecap. So her patella, or to those like me that don't know medical terms, is the kneecap, was found. Yeah, only one kneecap was found, which was positively identified by DNA as Kent's in 2015. So it took a while to identify it, but I think it took them a while to actually find it as well. So now we're in 1975. We're still in Utah. So this is literally every month or a couple a month. Like he's just kind of, he's just on a roll.
Had that spot where he went a few months without doing anything.
Yeah, but I guess because it was the Christmas period.
Yeah.
He skipped December. Now straight into it. In January 12th, we've got Karen Aileen Campbell. She was 23. Disappeared from a hotel hallway in Snowmass Village, Colorado. Her body was discovered on a dirt road near the hotel with skull fractures and knife wounds on February 17th. So that's a little bit out of his MO. Using a knife. And it was a bit sloppy, just dumped her on a dirt road. So is this, I think at this point he may have been on the run now. Because when he was on the run was when he was sloppy. When he had time to sort of plan these things out and cover his tracks better, it was when he had a place. He was more settled in, I guess, to be able to do that. Then he skipped a month, and then on March 15th, we've got Julie Lyle Cunningham, 26, disappeared from Vail, Colorado after she left her apartment in the Polo Park neighborhood to visit a local tavern. Her body was buried, according to Bundy, near Rifle, 90 miles, 140 kilometers west of Vail, but it was actually never found. So that's another one that potentially lied about. April 6th, we've got Denise Lynn Oliverson, 24. Like, I don't know if like, I'm just being repetitive at this point of people and dates. Like, it's literally April, May, June. There's 3 females. 24. One was 12. One was 15. Abducted while cycling to her parents' house, and then her body was thrown just down the river, 8 kilometers west of where she was taken from, but that one was never found. And the 12-year-old was abducted after she left high school for... Wait, 12-year-old? Oh, junior high. She left junior high on her lunch break.
Wow.
Just to get food. Her body was thrown, according to Bundy, into what authorities believe to be the Snake River. But again, her body was never found. The third one, the 15-year-old Susan, disappeared during a youth conference. Like, it's all these just completely normal women, children even. 12-year-old is a child still.
Just doing everyday things.
Going home to your mum and dad from school. So Susan, she left her friends to walk back to her dorm room. So it's like a whole, walk in pairs. Have someone walk you to your door. Like, I know, like, this was in the 70s, but... So her body was buried, according to Bundy, along a highway near Price, 25 miles or 121 kilometers southeast of Provo. But that, again, was never found. So there's like 4 now in total, I think, that they never sort of found that what he said was precise locations. And yeah. So this was 75. So there was a period between 75 and 78 where he didn't do anything. I'll double check whether that's when he was sort of going through court and things. But then he went on another little spree. This one was pretty fucked up because it wasn't one attack and then he was done. He went to, I think he was just in a bar somewhere, tried to hit on a bunch of girls, and they were like, ew, no. And he'd followed them back to their, not dorm, their, not frat house either. What do you call them? Sorority house?
Yeah.
Followed them back to their sorority house and went from room to room.
I'm pretty sure he was on the run when he did that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, went room to room attacking him, and then went into another house as well. There was like a couple that he did in one main house, and then there was like, he just went on a spree. Like, he just fucking fritzed out, and I just dribbled and spat everywhere. Fritzed out, and he couldn't stop himself. So this was in 1978, like you said, when he was on the run, I'm pretty sure. This was in Florida. So the very first one was, this was on January 15th, by the way. So it was Margaret Elizabeth Bowman. She was 21. She was bludgeoned, strangled as she slept. This was in the Chi Omega sorority in the Florida State University. So there was no secondary crime scene to any of these. Like, he just kind of went into their place, shit up, and then left. After Margaret, there was Lisa Janet Levy. She was 20. She was bludgeoned, strangled, bitten, and sexually assaulted as she slept in her room. Then there was Karen Chandler, 21. She was bludgeoned as well while she slept. She actually survived, although her skull was fractured and her jaw, right arm, and fingers were crushed during the attack. I believe this was the one that couldn't remember the attack itself. So that's probably for her best interest, her mental state of mind to not have remembered that. Then we've got Kathy Kleiner. She was 21. She was bludgeoned as she slept as well, resulting in her jaw being shattered and her right cheek being ripped open. Wow. She survived.
Crazy.
Imagine your jaw being ripped open and surviving that. It's literally what they do in scary movies. Way to go, Kathy. Then there was Cheryl Thomas. She was bludgeoned as she slept as well, 8 blocks from the Chi Omega house. So after he did those first few, kind of legged it, because I think people were coming out of their rooms and there was like too many people kind of thing. Legged it and then went into another house. And then, yeah, there was Cheryl Thomas. She survived as well. After having a fractured jaw and skull, which left her with permanent deafness in her left ear and equilibrium damage. After that, I think he'd just gone back into kind of hiding. Then a month later, it was February 9th, and it was Kimberly Diane Leach, which was the one that the fibers of his clothes help pinpoint to her, which was the only evidence they ever sort of had of his on anything or crime scene kind of related. So she was abducted from Lake City Junior High School in Lake City, Florida, and she was last seen being led to a white van by a man who was later identified as Bundy. So mummified remains found near Suwannee River State Park. I think that's how you say that. My God, why are these names all so difficult? They're probably not. I'm just dyslexic. That was 43 miles or 69 kilometers west of Lake City, with homicidal violence about the neck region, which, you know, strangled and I guess maybe ripped. I don't know. That sounds like it's homicidal violence about the neck region. Makes me just think that he's ripped her head off with his bare hands kind of thing. This next lot is listed under the unconfirmed ones. Bundy remains a suspect in several unsolved homicides and disappearances and is likely responsible for others that may never be identified. And I believe that. There's so many out there that could potentially be a Bundy victim. Apparently he, in 1987... Fucking hell, I can't even... In 1987, he confided in Keppel that there was some murders that he would never talk about because they were committed too close to home, too close to family, or involved victims who were very young. So I think there was a lot that I think he himself didn't want to maybe hash over. Well, too freaking
spoke
bad.
about a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And then he's saying the victims
if he's
are very
saying
young.
Too young, like what has he done? That would have been, I presume, maybe in his younger childhood years.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Close to home as well. Too close to family. What does that mean? Yeah, so minutes before his execution, Hagmeyer, which I think was someone that, like the FBI agent guy, he queried Bundy about unsolved homicides in New Jersey, Vermont, Illinois, Texas, and Florida. Bundy was kind of reluctant to give them any more info or give them directions. Or if he did give them directions, they were proven inaccurate, especially in the Utah sites and stuff like that. And then he also later denied involvement in any open cases. So he was kind of like one moment, oh yeah, there's more. Then the next moment, I'm like, no, what I've told you's it. Or, you know, he kept changing his story. In 2011, Bundy's complete DNA profile obtained from a vial of his blood found in an evidence vault was added to the FBI's DNA database for future reference in any unsolved murders. That evidence has been passed on, which I guess is good. I think it's kind of like one of those, they have to test it against certain things, and it's just down such a long list of cases that you're like, well, Bundy's dead. They're not
Let's
sort of in a rush
prioritize ones we can actually grab people
for something. Yeah. Which is still sad because you do want people to sort of get closure on ones because these ones are unsolved and not necessarily pinpointed to Bundy at this stage. So there was Anne Marie Burr, who was 8. That's a very young one. She vanished from her Tacoma residence on August 31st, 1961, when Bundy was aged 14. An unknown tennis shoe imprint was found by the overturned bench used to enter her house. Due to the small size of the shoe, police believed the perpetrator was a teenager or like a young person. The Burr house was on Bundy's newspaper delivery route, so they reckon that he's doing his rounds of newspaper deliveries and just, you know. Burr's father was actually certain that he saw Bundy in a ditch at the construction site on a nearby UPS campus the morning his daughter disappeared.
Wow.
Which is sad. An 8-year-old.
Yeah, and for him to be such a child himself too.
To have these things cross his mind and be like, I'm going to act on this with an 8-year-old and do unspeakable things. So there's other circumstantial evidence that implicates Bundy as well, but detectives familiar with the case have never actually agreed on the likelihood of his involvement. He's actually repeatedly denied any sort of involvement. He actually wrote them a letter of denial to the Burr family. He wrote them a letter of denial in 1986. Also, he would have been in his 20s plus. So Keppel, who's one of the investigators, observed that Burr's case fits all three categories of murders Bundy would never talk about. Being one, that's too close to home because it was in his neighborhood, close to family, and the very young, which 8 is very freaking young. Like, there was forensic testing, I think, that they did on the Burr crime scene in 2011, but it yielded insufficient intact DNA sequences for comparison with Bundy's. So it was just inaccurate and sort of not enough to pinpoint him. So that one remains speculative and open. There was a flight attendant named Lisa Wick. Two flight attendants, Lisa Wick and Lonnie Lee Trumbull, both 20, were bludgeoned with a piece of lumber as they slept in their basement apartment in Seattle. So it was in that, I guess, neighborhood where someone had already been attacked. In the early morning hours of June 23rd, 1966, an autopsy concluded that Trumbull had died at approximately midnight from a blow to the head she had received about an hour earlier.
Lived for an hour.
Yeah. In retrospect, Keppel, I've just gone blank, I was going to say interviewer, investigator, noted many similarities to the Chai mega crime scene. So it was quite a violent attack again. But I'm guessing because insufficient DNA, insufficient fingerprinting, they couldn't pinpoint him, just because it was similar again. It was very similar to that Seattle basement attack that he actually did get pinpointed to. But I think because it was similar, it wasn't enough for them to be able to be like, yes, you did that.
Yeah.
And because he denied it, they didn't have any hard evidence for it. Yeah, so that one remains unconfirmed. Then vacationing Pennsylvanian college friends Susan Marguerite Davis and Elizabeth Potter Perry, that's cute names, both 19, were stabbed to death in Somers Point, New Jersey on May 30th, 1969. The women had been visiting Ocean City and were on their way back to Pennsylvania at about 4:30 a.m. before they stopped at the Somers Point Diner for breakfast. Can you hear my stomach? Oh my God. I'm sorry. They left the diner 1 hour later and vanished. Their car was found that same day, abandoned beside the Garden State Parkway near Atlantic City, just 97 kilometers southeast of Philadelphia. Their bodies were later discovered in nearby woods 3 days later. Wow. Tied to the trees with their hair.
It doesn't sound very Bundy, though.
Yeah.
That one.
That one sounds a bit...
But he could have been experimenting and trying different
maybe
things.
didn't have anything to secure them with, I guess. But doing 2 at once is a bit out of the norm for him, I guess. I know, like, these couple, there was 2. So one of the women was naked with her clothing and accessories in a pile beside her. Except for her missing underwear, Perry was fully dressed. So this one was a big case of he said, she said. There was... based on an investigator's interview with Bundy's aunt. She said that he was wearing like a leg cast, did the whole automobile accident thing, or I needed help kind of thing. But then he's claimed that he didn't move there until like a certain period of time. So it was like a he said, she said kind of thing. So he couldn't get pinned for that one either. Then there was Rita Patricia Curran. She was 24-year-old elementary school teacher and part-time motel maid. She was murdered in her basement apartment on July 19th, 1971 in Burlington, Vermont. So now we're jumping, back to Vermont.
Yeah.
She'd been strangled, bludgeoned, and raped. And the time of her death was later given as approximately midnight. And apparently the motel she worked at was adjacent to Bundy's birthplace, the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers.
Oh, wow.
It was in his, I guess, area
of
where he would have not ventured. I don't know what the right words are. But it's in his area. That's one that's close to home, close to family. So he didn't want to... Maybe his mother knew this reader. Maybe not. Like, again, there's several more. I could continue, but it was just multiple unsolved cases that semi-fit his MO.
Yeah.
Whether it was the location, what they looked like, what their remains were sort of found.
Yeah.
Or how they had died, whether it was like strangulation, that sort of thing. So they're not trying to pinpoint, but there was a lot that they could have pinpointed as a Ted Bundy victim.
Yeah.
But like he's said, he doesn't want to admit to or talk about because they're close to home, close to family, close to, places he's been living. It was crazy how many victims he had, and then towards the end, how many survived such brutal attacks.
Yeah, and how he got away with it for so long, considering there were so many survivors.
Yeah. And it's crazy how he's broken out of prison. Was it out of prison? Like, he's literally just
So,
strolled out, I'm pretty sure, out of one
yeah.
of them.
One he just walked out of prison, and the other one was when he was in the courthouse.
Yeah, he was like, I got to go to the toilet, and then just kind of like just let him go for like a minute or two by himself.
Yep.
Why? I don't know why, but
Yep. And then with the prison, I know he went through the ceiling.
I remember that, and he ended up in the it was like security guard's bedroom or whatever it was. Like,
and then just walked out. And like even when he
dressed in his clothes and just walked out.
Even when he escaped the court, it wasn't even the security that realized. It was someone off the street walked inside and said, "Hey, someone just jumped out of the second floor window. Is that normal?"
Yeah.
And then security were like, "No."
No. So like, how did he get away with that? And like I said I think, I can't remember if it was the beginning of this one or the first part, how he managed to, or how he was allowed to represent himself, even though he was a law student, considering the crimes against him or that were being presented against him. Why would you let someone like that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's the way he presented himself. They were like, no, he's sane mind.
That's it. And I think too, a lot of the legal lawyers and stuff, they didn't want to deal with him because they were all fairly certain that he was guilty.
Yeah.
And anyone who had worked with him when he was originally charged with the rape case, he undermined them a lot and was like, nah, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
So I know he had, I know he had someone, a lawyer, quit on him, and I think he had one that he sacked like during a trial.
Yeah.
So it was all games and show and...
Yeah. Even just allowing him to, I suppose it's hard because if he's representing himself, he's got to be able to speak and interview the people on the stand, but that they let him speak to the victims that survived. And I didn't get the name written down, but I got the story from Morbid's podcast.
Yeah.
That one of the survivors, when he was questioning her, was refusing to sort of bend to the way he was trying to word things and how he was questioning her, trying to make her break, trying to make her scared. He was trying to get her with the fear, and she just was not having a bar of it.
She was like, mate, I survived you when there was no one around, and now we're in a court. I'm surrounded by police officers and bailiffs. Like, I'm safe.
Until he'd finally snapped, and she was like, there we go. There you are. That's that monster.
There's the unhinged. But even the judge in his case said to him that it was a shame that was how he met him. It was something along the lines of, I wish I'd had you arguing cases in front of me on behalf of other people, not yourself, because you're incredibly intelligent. Like, the judge actually praised him on how well he did as defending himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the judge was like, it's a shame that we met under these circumstances, not...
Like, he could have been something.
Yeah, yep. Like, the judge himself said that you had so much potential.
If you just didn't snap.
Yeah.
Because you're too salty.
And he was the one that actually said in the sentencing, he said that the crimes you committed were whatever that fucking movie is called, extremely shocking, evil, and vile. Like, however it's worded, that was the judge's term. Like, he used that as he sentenced him. And that's why they used
that as the name. Okay. Yeah.
The judge was very obviously disgusted by him, but impressed, really impressed with how he defended himself.
The way he was presenting himself as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Which is wild to think about.
That was funny, actually. Like, the Bundy case was probably one of the first ones that actually got me interested in true crime.
Oh, really?
Because I can remember as a kid, because I think they executed him in 89, if I remember correctly. And I can actually remember people, like, it was on the news, and people were holding up signs, and there was this woman holding a sign that said Tuesday is Friday, but it was FRY day. So that was the day they were obviously executing him. And it just, to this day, 30 years later, it's stuck in my head, this sign that this woman held, Tuesday is Friday.
Wow.
And that was it. I was like hooked. I was like, wow, true crime. And just, and I would have been 6 then. So, and it was that big a deal that it stuck with me from 6 years old.
Yeah. I don't really know what kind of got me into it. It was just, I think it's Not fascination. I think it's just wanting to, I guess, understand.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like someone's telling a story. It's wild to hear that there's someone out there
Yeah.
that had thought process that led them to wherever they were in that point to kill someone.
Yep.
And it's what made you be like, yes, I'm going to commit this murder.
So where's that thing that goes off in someone's brain that just says, yeah, I don't care? Like, yeah, are you that arrogant that you think you're untouchable? That you'll never go to jail? That you're smarter than the police? And the police themselves said Bundy was smarter than us. He was a step in front at every point, and they still caught him.
Still got him, yeah.
So you're not smarter. You're going to get caught.
You'll always get caught. He was just such a case that, like you said, the media
went crazy with it.
The media's definitely painted Bundy a certain way. In these documentaries, I think the crimes that he's committed were so violently atrocious. You can't skim over that.
And I think in the media and at the time as well, they wouldn't have gone to national television at the 6 o'clock news and said, oh, he returned to the scene and continued to do things to the corpse. That wouldn't have been something they would have said back then.
Definitely
so
not.
The extent of his crimes, unless you were actually in the courtroom, the extent of his crimes wouldn't have really been as known.
Yeah.
It would have just been, oh yeah, he killed these women and he raped some of them. I think for a long time it was hidden from us just how
actual disgusting he was.
Yeah. And that's where that whole, he's a charmer, he's this, he's that, because people just, he just killed people. He didn't realise that it was his lifelong career, that he was so twisted, that this poor woman who was with him for years, who was raising her child with him, had no idea that he was doing the things he was doing. And the impact it would have had on her life too, knowing that she trusted this man in her home, in her bed, with her child. I know he ended up having a kid.
Yeah.
And I know he got the woman pregnant while he was in jail.
Yeah, because I did read that there was no conjugal visits, but they just bribe.
Yeah.
It's just very easy to bribe security to be able to do that.
So according to the movie, she stuck with him when he was being charged with just the rape, but it was when all the other stuff started coming out, she started pulling back.
Was like, nah.
And then this other woman stepped in and was his guiding light.
So Boone, the lady that he had a child with, was named Carol Ann Boone. She gave birth to Bundy's daughter, who they named Rose, in 1982 while he was incarcerated.
Wow.
Rose never came into the spotlight and didn't talk to the media about her father, so she didn't want a bar of it.
But how do you have that conversation with your kid?
I didn't even know he's had a child.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a little baby Bundy out there.
Yep.
Not that it matters too much.
And like, what gives him the right to have a child and get married and do all those things that he took away from
other women?
Yeah. But the irony of him having a daughter.
Yeah, holy shit, this is like almost an hour and a half long. I'm not going to make it a 3-parter. We'll still release this as 2.
Yeah, it just might be long episodes for you.
Yeah, but that was Ted Bundy. He was a lot to get out. He was a lot to...
And even then, we still only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There was so much more. This could have been a 10-parter.
There's so many small details of things and full details of the attacks. But yes, I'm not sure what we're going to do on the next one. I haven't really thought that far.
I have one ready to go.
I don't have anything else on my sleeve after this.
We've got a bit of time anyway.
Yes. So thank you guys for listening to our TED Talk.
Yes.
TED Bundy Talk. Yeah. Hit that little bell, as Jade will say.
Yep. Ding the bell and follow all the socials and do all the things and tell someone to lift their game on the TikToks.
Jade. So, make some funnies. We need some bloopers or something.
I've got plenty of videos in there ready to go. I just haven't done anything with them.
Yeah. But it has been the Christmas period.
True.
And now it's coming into New Year's.
Yep.
Don't party too hard, everyone. And we'll see you, I guess, in the new year.
Happy 2025.
Bye-bye.